Hello, I'm Kirillite. This is my sixth time trying to record this video for various reasons. But today I'm here to talk about the Ergosphere drop. Not the post drop, not the trance section that I also helped with. Those are going to be two videos that I put out hopefully tomorrow and the day after. Today I'm just focusing on the drop. To start off, I just kind of want to talk arrangement. So I've turned it down in OBS so it's going to sound a little bit quieter than it does in the final song. But before I play the second half of the drop, which is what I made first, I first want to say that there's sort of three types of sounds, and I'm going to go through them as these types of sounds. There is the 16th note transient, there is the sustain, and there are the fillers. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because it'll help when you listen to this to kind of see the trade-off between them. And then I'll talk about it afterward. And then also in the first half of the drop, it's very similar. So, I wish I could tell you guys, here's how I came up with this drop flow. Unfortunately, it came to me in a dream, pretty much. So, instead of that, I can just kind of go back and analyze it retroactively, which what I hear is a 2 or 3 part call, and then the sustain bass is the response, and then I have set up for the next call. So we have so this is the call right here. This is the response. And then this is the setup for the next call. Right? The other thing to note about this call that I think makes it effective is the fact that it's loud, quiet, loud. Or I guess busy, empty, busy. Where you have right, there's this empty space right here. And then set up for the sustain. That's the best I can do when it comes to explaining the arrangement of the basses and why it's effective. There's really not if you don't know how to write bass patterns, there's not a lot I can give you. It just comes with time and building your ear. So, because it's easier, I'm going to talk about drums first. Then I'm going to talk about the metallic transient, then the sustain, and then all the fill stuff. Oh, and then 2 basses that are only used in turnarounds. So, here are the drums. There's nothing special about them. There is one thing special about them. And it's going on with the snare. And the snare has a reverb send. So without the reverb send, it's... And then with the reverb send, it is... But something about that reverb tail kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It didn't sit the way I wanted to. It felt too dry. It felt too much like the snare. So I layered it with noise. That's the unique thing that's going on with these drums. Everything else is normal. Okay. So that literally leaves me just to talk about basses. So we're going to start actually over here. I think it's easier if I start over here. We're going to start here. That's where we're starting. This is a 3-part bass, and in particular, there's an 808, and it is an 808. It's here. Sine wave with noise. Pretty much everything else in this patch is irrelevant. This is modulating the noise, so it's giving it this just gritty quality. If I take it off, I want it to feel crunchier, so it's very slight because I'm blurring it with reverb down the line. But this is just a sine wave with noise 808. If I take everything off, you get, right, that sounds exactly like that. And then this for the crunch. And then this distortion's where it begins to get shaped. And then I have this EQ to boost up the very highs, the noise. And then I have this to stereoize the highs as well as put some reverb on it. And then this to clip it. It's also worth mentioning, there's a little bit of a pitch slide at the beginning of the 808 just for the attack of it. The second layer is this guy. Really weird sound. I just needed something to like hold down the transient here. And I want you to know that this is the sound I made last. And the reason I made it last was because I thought I was going to get my transient out of the other sound, but I didn't. And so to make sure that the transient really popped out, I added this. This is a preset I'm going to go over later because it's throughout this entire drop. But for now, if I take off all of the effects, which I think are a lot, yeah, that's a lot of effects. You're going to hear this is just a wavetable, in particular White Noise with Spectral Gate 2, which is my favorite wavetable of mine, and it was made exactly how it sounds. And it sounds like this. Then I have this on there just cause. It adds a little extra like whip to it. These also are there to add some extra whip. Then I have this flanger, which changes the tone a little bit. And then compression. Oh, it's also worth mentioning, I'm randomizing the wavetable position. The reason that that's important is just because I didn't want this to sound the same every time. You can easily get into the machine gun effect with that, which if you're trying to make a machine gun is perfect. In this case, I didn't want to. Then we have parametric EQ, don't ask, I don't know. This is just kind of what I heard. If I take all this off, it sounds like this. Then I have this pinch to bring out the transient a lot. Like a lot. Little bit of reverb. This is important. Size is low, but also the diffusion is very low. And the reason that that's important is because a reverb is built from like a ton of delays. And when you turn the diffusion down, it turns down the number of delays. And so this sort of begins to sound tonal, and because the size is where it's at in proportion to the diffusion, it kind of sounds low. When you're doing this, trial and error. If you want this sound, it's going to be trial and error. It's going to be different every time. It's weird. Frequency shifter down 1,155 hertz. Because I have that number memorized, you probably think it's an important number. It's not. Once again, trial and error. EQ to get it out of the way of the sub, and to get it out of the way of the other half of the sub. Clipper. Then we get to the fun sound. This is the sound that started it all. This is the Ergosphere Sound. So there's a bunch of variations on this. In particular, this is the... Am I looking at the wrong... No, this is the correct one. Yeah, okay. This is probably the simplest one. And it pretty much only uses these two oscillators. And the noise is barely there on the attack. And so it comes down to what I'm doing with these two oscillators and all of the post-processing. So these two oscillators are doing like spectral stuff. And I want you guys to know that for the longest time, I could not figure out the Agenti 00 Extruler. Agenti goes by Yovio now, but I feel weird saying that because I like know Spanish, and so I just automatically translate that. But Yovio and everyone, they have this sort of sound, and I could never figure out how to do it. And so when I sat down to do this project, I was like, there's no way it's as simple as everyone is saying. Do you really just make a spectral sound, throw it into Vital, and hope? And the answer is yes. That's exactly what happened. White Noise with Spectral Gate 2. It's the same wavetable as well as Harmer Spectral 8, which what I do is I have a Harmer patch. In fact, I might be able to open it. This is a very complicated patcher for what it does. So when you look at this, it's very overcomplicated, but I'm just taking a harmonizer and I'm randomizing a bunch of parameters, so it sounds like this. And I export those to audio, and I throw them into wavetables, and so it becomes this. Well, how does just this wavetable sound? How does just this wavetable sound? And then together. So, other things worth noting. I have spectral time skew on this, and the reason I'm doing that is because these wavetables are very unpredictable. They have lots of variation. Parts of them are quiet, parts of them are loud, parts of them have tons of stuff all across the frequency spectrum, and parts of them have nothing. So the spectral time skew is just kind of a fail-safe of like, can I mix that around a little bit? Can I make sure that there's enough of anything at any given time? So that's what that is. And then I'm doing it on both of them. I'm also doing it on this one, but you can barely, and I mean barely, hear it. And then I have a little bit of noise, and it sounds like that. Worth mentioning, this macro is just automating wavetable position. Little bit of low pass. The reason this is there is because originally I thought it was going to be how I got my transient, but I eventually had to replace it with the other thing because it sounded better that way. And then this guy makes it go wow wow. Wow 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 wow. And then I have a compressor. And then there's a whole lot of post-processing. So first off, I tune it down, I think. Yeah, there you go. And then I have this EQ to get it out of the way of stuff I don't want to be in the way of and boost the stuff I do want. A diopter to increase the like oomph of it. This multipass is crazy complicated. Basically, it's multi-band distortion, but I put a chorus on the mids, and then I stereoize the highs, and then I just added a ton of distortion to the highs for high content. So you get, right, upwards compression. I wanted to sound louder, so I made it louder. Now I need to get it out of the way of the sub. And then a clipper. And there you go. So that's the metallic transient. I do, however, want to bring up something over here. Oh, hold on. Which is that this sound has something else interesting going on. First off, different wavetables. Secondly, I have 3 voices of unison on all of these. And it doesn't sound that way because the pitch is locked and the phases are also locked. So they should line up. But I have slightly different wavetable positions and I have full stereo. So it just makes it sound a little bit more stereo. But it's a slight difference. It's not a lot. The other important thing to note is that you'll notice that one has 3 oscillators. Both of them did, but I only mentioned 2. That's because the only time you hear oscillator 3 is here. This one. That is the only time oscillator 3 is active. And it's the same deal. It is also worth mentioning, but I'm going to go over this more in depth. This sound does get layered over here. There is a version of that gets layered here. This is number 18. But there's a lot going on there. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick right now. And so here's now we get to talk about the sustain, which is basically the same thing. Same deal, but this time I'm AMing it by a Reese just cuz. But it's like largely the same. These multipasses are doing basically the same stuff that we already have. And then I have a soothe on here just to make sure that this stuff doesn't get obnoxious. And then a diopter, and then a clipper, and then a upwards compression multiband, and then parametric EQ to get it out of the way of the sub, and then another clipper. So nothing too crazy there. Okay, now let's talk about the fillers, which are that guy, the one you heard for a split second, this guy, and any instance of that Reese Jam. So there's some weird stuff. There's some weird stuff going on here. This first one is not weird, though. This is your stereotypical growl. It's very similar process to the actual metallic sound. The biggest difference is that instead of it being an atonal high spectral noise, I'm making it very, like, tonal, loud, and in particular, I'm using bend to make it that way. Without the bend, it becomes, which is sick, but it doesn't quite work. You can hear the spectral part of that, though. But with the bend, it becomes, which is what I was looking for. I think it was around here. That's still too much. Yeah, there we go. And it's just a whole lot of upwards compression, distortion, and all of that. This next sound is the same thing, but a different wavetable. I don't know what's going on with that wavetable, so I can't explain to you why it sounds like this. Trial and error. This, I really wish I could explain to you. I really wish I could tell you how this sound was made, but it is a DenPelm preset that I edited to work with this drop. All of his presets and most of mine are going to be in the Crossover for Charity pack. So you will be able to have access to these sounds. If you have any questions, you can go and dissect them. And I personally don't understand how DenPelm does what he does. It's insane to me. So I wish I could explain these sounds, but I can't. Then we have this guy. So this is the most complicated sound in the song, even more than the metallic guy. And to talk about it, I need to talk about like 5 things. So bear with me. This is going to seem like a tangent, but it's not. Let's go over this sound. This sound. This is a saw wave Reese. It has 4 macros. One is pitch, one is a low pass, another is inactive, and the last one is a comb filter. So let's take off all of the effects. This is how it sounds. Yep. And then it becomes this. 90% of the filtering on this is just for shaping. It is a square wave Reese with a sine wave low end. More filter for shaping. And then we have this guy. This is the same multiband distortion as earlier. Mid-scoop, upwards compression for more oomph. The reason you'll see me use bias on distortion a lot is because it makes the sound lower. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to make it sound lower. Then I have a hard clipper. Then I have a gain because I kept getting hits after the sound was over. It would kind of linger and I didn't want that, so I would cut it off the moment the sound ends. And then I have this multipass, which I'm in turn off for a second. So this is a comb filter. And the reason that it's a comb filter and not a flanger is because you can manually tune a comb filter, and I like that. It's how you'll hear Belaine, a lot of the like old school UK D&B people do it. This is also tech I learned. Oh wait, no, I didn't even go. Okay. This is tech I learned from Anti-Real, N2, Fern. And that's what it is. And then there's a whole lot of post-process. The only important, unique post-processing on here is this diopter. And the reason that I'm doing that is because if I mask the like dry cleanliness of the sound, it makes it seem more impressive. The reason that I brought up that sound is because if you randomize that patch, export it to audio, you get this. And this has a lot of other like different post-processing, but it's that. Then if you take a spectral compressor and you take this, which I'll explain what that is in a second, but if you take that, throw it into Spectral Compressor and take the spectral content from the glitch sound design jam and imprint it onto the Reese, you're going to get the sound design jam I'm using in this song, which sounds like this. The thing is, I like reverse stuff and I stretch them, but that glitch sound design jam is an entire drop thrown into new tone, and then I just scrub around with it. It sounds like this. So you do all that, you get this sound, and then you still have to post-process it. It's largely just beef it up, though. And then there's this guy. This is the last sound in the drop. So as I already said, this is layered with this guy. And it's also this guy. So if I take off all the post-processing, you already know how this layer sounds. So this is how just the Reese sounds. This has a low pass on it, and I think that's it. Oh, and a phaser that's going up. Then there's a whole lot of post-processing. This comb filter is doing the same thing that I'm doing on the other Reese with the comb filter. Diopter. This guy is important for me. This upwards compression. Upwards compression again. Multipass to bring out the highs. So this is weird. I'm doing the multiband distortion with mids chorus again. Then I have quantize to add more high content. Then I have a dynamics on the mids, the highs, and the master bus of this to remove performance hits, just like I had with the other Reese. I have this Haas to stereoize the highs. I have this ring mod to make sure that they're ducking under the sub so that you still get the clear low end cutting through on this. And then I have another distortion. But that's really loud. It's kind of high heavy, so. And then distortion. And then you'll notice the low end kind of lingers. And I'm already layering it with another sub, so I just high passed it out. And then let's add this guy back in. This is another DenPelm bass, by the way. Also, this is a DenPelm bass. In fact, it's the exact same one that I'm using before the second drop. And then there's also this guy. And the reason I started to say that the other sound was a trick I also learned from N2 was because this was also a trick I learned from N2. And what this is it's the it's this sound design jam again. And then I threw FL Studio's Pogo on it. And so that's how you get the... And that's the whole drop. Oh, wait, no, there's this guy. This guy... It's like... It's so overcomplicated for what it is, but I'll go over it. Don't ask me how I made this wavetable, I don't know. We have this for formant movement. We have this because it adds some like shaping to it, especially once you get here. Once again, I don't know why that does what it does, but it does. And then without all of the post-processing, we have... I don't know why the chorus pitches it up either. It's also worth mentioning, you get a lot of really nice textures by automating this stuff with the yoink. The important thing about making a yoink that sounds like this is that this is modulating the pitch of the oscillator like hell. You can see that. And so you get the... And then there's just some post-processing to make it sound the way I wanted it to. And then there you go. Okay, that's the drop. I hope this time I can actually upload this video and feel okay about it.